Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're jumping straight into some really striking news today, something that signals a dramatic, almost unthinkable shift, really, in global politics. U.S. President Donald Trump recently hosted Pakistan's Army Chief Asim Munir at the White House for lunch.
Right.
Now, if that just sounds like, standard diplomacy to you, consider this. Munir is not a head of state. Hosting an army chief like this? Well, it's unprecedented for a U.S. president.
It really is. It begs the question, how did we get here?
Exactly. How did we get here? Especially when you think about Trump himself.
Well, yeah, just 7 years ago, the same President Trump was accusing Pakistan of giving the U.S., and I quote, nothing but lies and deceit, and harboring terrorists.
And not just Trump. Remember President Joe Biden, just a few years back, calling Pakistan one of the most dangerous nations?
That's right. So the contrast is stark.
It's incredibly stark.
Yeah.
How does a relationship marked by, so much acrimony and distrust suddenly pivot to White House lunches and public praise? What's the immediate story here?
Yeah, what changed?
So our mission in this deep dive is basically to unpack this surprising reset in U.S. Pakistan ties. We want to look at the stated reasons, but also the deeper dynamics that might be at play.
And what it means, right, for the region, and maybe even more importantly, for Pakistan itself internally?
Precisely. The internal power balance.
Yeah.
We're drawing quite a bit from a recent Al Jazeera piece. Trump embraces Pakistan, tactical romance, or a new inner circle. That's kind of our guide here. Okay, let's get into it.
Sounds good. So looking back, the U.S.-Pakistan relationship, it's been, rocky is putting it mildly.
Understatement, yeah.
To really get this turnaround, you have to remember the context. I mean, things were already deeply strained, for instance, after Osama bin Laden was found in Abbottabad back in 2011. That just shattered trust.
Oh, absolutely. I remember that.
And then more recently, after the Taliban took back power in Afghanistan in August 2021, that strategic partnership between the U.S. and Pakistan seemed to kind of fade even more. Pakistan started looking more towards China,
Which makes this current turnaround just so jarring, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You fast forward to March 4th this year, Trump's addressing Congress.
Yeah.
And he publicly thanks Pakistan for something huge, helping arrest the alleged mastermind behind that deadly Abbey gate bombing at Kabul airport in August 2021.
Wow, okay. That's significant public praise.
Huge. And then, just 3 months later, that unprecedented White House lunch we mentioned, hosting General Munir during his U.S. trip. It's a massive shift, visually and diplomatically.
It really is. And the Al Jazeera article suggests this turnaround, it wasn't overnight, it's been brewing for weeks. And there seem to be two main stated reasons for this dramatic reset.
Okay, what are they?
Well, the first one is this renewed focus on counterterrorism cooperation. As you mentioned, Trump directly acknowledging Pakistan's role in nabbing that Abbey gate bombing suspect.
Now, you mentioned renewed counterterrorism cooperation. General Michael Kurilla, the CNTCOM chief, he testified recently, didn't he?
Yeah.
What did he say that sort of underlines this? Any specifics?
He did. Testifying before the House Armed Services Committee, Juneteenth, he called Pakistan, and this is a direct quote, a phenomenal partner in the counterterrorism world.
Phenomenal partner. Wow.
Yeah. And what really jumped out was he specifically mentioned that Field Marshal Asim Munir himself called Kurilla, personally, to report the capture of one of the Daesh-K, ISIS-K individuals.
So a direct line, high-level communication, that signals real trust, doesn't it?
It definitely suggests a much closer working relationship on that front, real coordination.
Okay, so that's counterterrorism. What was the second big reason Trump gave for this meeting, this rapprochement?
The second major reason he cited was Munir's role, apparently a pivotal one, in de-escalating that conflict between Pakistan and India back in May.
Ah, yes, the May conflict. Remind us briefly what happened there.
Sure. It kicked off with an attack in April in Indian-administered Kashmir, killed 26 Indian civilians. India pointed the finger at Pakistan. Pakistan denied it, called for an investigation.
And then it escalated quickly, right?
Very quickly. May 7th, India launches strikes inside Pakistan, and Pakistan administered Kashmir. Pakistan's Air Force hits back, claims they downed, I think, 6 Indian jets. India confirmed losses but didn't give numbers.
Right.
Then you had 3 days of drone and missile exchanges, mainly military targets. Eventually it cooled down. The source says through intense back-channel diplomacy, particularly involving the U.S., leading to a ceasefire.
Okay, so that brings us back to Trump. He basically said, I stopped the war. That's quite a statement.
It is. He said, I stopped the war between Pakistan and India. This man, Munir, was extremely influential in stopping it from the Pakistan side, Modi from the India side, and others.
But what about the other side, specifically India? Do they agree it was U.S. mediation that did the trick?
That's where it gets interesting. The Indian perspective seems quite different. Their foreign secretary, Vikram Misri, stated pretty clearly that India believes the ceasefire came about purely from bilateral talks, no U.S. mediation.
So a direct contradiction there.
Pretty much. Misri even mentioned that the Indian PM Modi had spoken to Trump specifically to emphasize Delhi's view that the U.S. wasn't mediating. So, yeah, disagreement on who gets the credit for cooling things down.
Fascinating. Okay, so those are the sort of official reasons, the headlines. What about the deeper currents? Are there other dynamics at play here that our sources point to?
Definitely. There are a few other factors suggested. One comes from Arif Ansar, a strategist at Politact. He suggests Pakistan's military performance during that May flare-up with India actually played a role.
How so?
His thinking is that by showing it could, outmaneuver a much bigger adversary, Pakistan basically demonstrated its strategic value, prompting Trump to engage based on, as Ansar puts it, core strategic interests. It's about leverage.
Interesting take. And it seems Pakistan might be offering more this time than just counterterrorism help.
Yeah.
Marvin Weinbaum from the Middle East Institute notes Pakistan has put more goodies on the table.
Yeah, what kind of goodies are we talking about?
Well, it seems they're diversifying. There's talk of a potential trade deal, possibly with no tariffs. That's obviously attractive.
Big incentive, yeah.
Plus, access to rare earth minerals. Those are crucial for all sorts of high-tech stuff, defense, robotics, electronics.
Very strategic resources.
And also crypto investments. Apparently, Pakistan has set up a crypto council. They've been talking to U.S. officials. Seems like a broader economic pitch.
So moving beyond just the security lens, perhaps.
Maybe trying to. And then there's the wider regional picture, isn't there?
Yeah.
How does this Munir meeting fit with, say, the tensions in the Middle East right now?
That's a really important backdrop. This meeting happened while things were heating up elsewhere. Israel conducting strikes inside Iran since mid-June, Iran retaliating.
And Iran shares a long border with Pakistan.
Exactly. Over 900 kilometers. Trump himself commented on this, saying Pakistanis know Iran very well, better than most, but that they're not happy about the current situation.
So does that imply a potential role for Pakistan in managing regional tensions, maybe related to Iran, from the U.S. perspective?
It certainly raises the question. Given Pakistan's location and its complex relationship with Iran, it could be seen as having a potential role, or at least valuable intelligence, as the U.S. navigates that whole situation.
Right. So we've got these potential drivers: counterterrorism, regional mediation, strategic leverage, economic offers, the Iran factor. But the big question remains, is this real? Is it a lasting shift? Or, just as the Al Jazeera headline asks, a tactical romance? What are the experts saying about the durability of this?
Well, there's definitely a split in opinion, reflecting the uncertainty. Marvin Weinbaum, who we mentioned earlier, he's pretty cautious, skeptical even.
How so?
He describes the current U.S. administration as mercurial and personalized. He emphasizes that it's not driven by traditional foreign policy processes. His warning is stark. Nothing is permanent in this administration. It can change on a dime at any hour.
So heavily dependent on Trump himself and potentially fleeting.
That's his assessment. He basically says, don't count on this sticking around. It's not institutionalized.
Okay, what's the counter-argument?
Yeah.
Is anyone seeing this as more significant?
Yes. Raza Ahmad Rumi from the City University of New York takes a different view. He calls the Trump lunch invite protocol redefining, even historic.
Strong words.
He suggests it signals Pakistan is back in the inner circle, at least for now. But, and this is a big but, he immediately brings up the history.
The transactional nature of the relationship.
Exactly. He points out that U.S.-Pakistan ties have often been largely transactional, especially focused on security. U.S. aid comes when Pakistan aligns with U.S. goals, then it fades. It creates this pattern.
And breeds distrust on both sides, right? The U.S. feeling Pakistan plays a double game, Pakistan feeling its sacrifices aren't appreciated.
Precisely. So Rumi's concern, despite seeing the current moment as significant, is that unless this relationship is institutionalized beyond the security lens, it's another tactical romance.
And like past ones, it could just fizzle out.
It could fade once, immediate strategic goals are met, or if there's a change in leadership on either side. It needs deeper roots than just security cooperation to last, in his view.
Arif Ansar also frames this moment as a kind of strategic crossroads for Pakistan, doesn't he?
He does. He sees Pakistan as being on the brink of a major strategic choice, whether to lean more towards China or towards the U.S., especially with global power dynamics shifting.
And he connects that choice to other regional issues.
Yeah, he suggests this decision is also tangled up with the evolving Israel-Palestine situation and Iran's regional role.
Yeah.
So Pakistan's alignment could have really far-reaching consequences.
Okay, let's pivot slightly. We've talked about the why and the how long. What about the impact inside Pakistan? What does this direct engagement between the U.S. president and Pakistan's army chief signal domestically, particularly for that sensitive civil-military balance?
This is a critical dimension, and maybe a worrying one for some. The sources we looked at really emphasize that Pakistan's military is still its most powerful institution. Huge influence over politics, society, everything, really.
And the current civilian government.
Well, it was elected in a pretty controversial vote, and it's widely seen as, let's say, secondary to the military leadership under Munir. He's seen as the real center of power.
And historically, when U.S. presidents have engaged directly with Pakistani military leaders, there was a key difference, wasn't there?
A crucial difference. You think back to figures like Ayub Khan in the 60s, Ul Haq in the 80s, Musharraf in the 2000s. Yes, they all had strong U.S. ties. They were hosted by U.S. presidents, but only after they had actually become heads of state, usually through coups. Munir is just the army chief, though he holds the rare rank of field marshal like Ayub Khan, being hosted at the White House in this capacity without being head of state. That's what's unprecedented.
And what does that signal internally? Raza Ahmad Rumi had a pretty pointed take on this.
He did. He cautioned that while this meeting validates the military-to-military channel, it crucially bypasses the civilian setup, and he says that should worry anyone rooting for democratic consolidation in Pakistan.
He used a striking phrase, didn't he?
Yes. If this is the reset, it's one where khaki, meaning the military uniform, once again trumps ballot. It suggests the military's dominance is being reinforced, perhaps at the expense of democratic institutions.
A powerful image. Does Arif Ansar agree on this point?
He seems to. He states the meeting reflects adversely on the civil-military balance, showing clearly who the real power bearer is in U.S. eyes, anyway, and he issues a warning based on history.
What's the warning?
He warns that similar past dealings where external powers engage directly with the military bypassing civilian structures have ultimately led to tremendous political, economic, and security-related repercussions for the nation.
So short-term gains, perhaps, but long-term negative consequences internally.
That's the concern. He argues it promotes a norm where huge decisions affecting the country get made in private without discussion, consensus, or public ownership.
Which leads to?
Which, he fears, leads to increased societal and political disillusionment about the country's future. It erodes faith in the whole process.
So quite a complex picture. We've covered this dramatic turnaround in U.S. Pakistan relations, driven apparently by immediate needs, counterterrorism, regional stability, but playing out against this backdrop of shifting global strategies, economic interests, and, as some experts warn, a potentially mercurial U.S. approach.
And crucially, we've also touched on the potential internal costs for Pakistan, how this reset might reinforce the military's power and potentially sideline civilian democratic structures, carrying echoes of past patterns.
Yeah, this deep dive really shows how a seemingly straightforward foreign policy move can be tangled up with immediate pressures, long-standing historical baggage, personal relationships, and potentially unforeseen consequences down the line.
It really highlights the tension between immediate strategic needs and the longer-term health of democratic institutions, doesn't it?
It certainly does. So, thinking about everything we've discussed, the transactional history, Weinbaum's warning about the administration's volatility, Rumi's call for institutionalization, what should we as observers really be looking for? What would be the clearest sign that this new engagement is genuinely different, that it has real staying power beyond just being another tactical romance?
Right.
What's the key indicator, you think?